Hello everyone, and thanks for joining me for this new video. In my last video we did explore CSS Grid, and today we will use it to build this Frontend Mentor challenge. And this is the result we will achieve together. And this was designed from this challenge. And of course you will find the link in the video description. And we are building a Testimonials Grid section. Just before we dive into the details, let's have a look at what we will build together. So this is the result on the desktop version. I will be using Oxygen and OxyProps for this build. But of course, if you are a Bricks user, you can follow along. It will be exactly the same. And of course, one of the benefits of using OxyProps for this build is that in addition to the guidelines from the challenge, we have a color responsive design, because our design, of course, is responsive to light and dark mode. Another aspect of this challenge is to be mobile responsive. So let's have a look by opening our DevTools and activating the responsive mode. And this is based on CSS Grid. And when my viewport reduces, the design adapts to reach the mobile version. And that's one of the challenges with this Frontend Mentor challenge, because we are given a desktop design, a mobile design, but we have no instruction about what to do in between the mobile and the desktop version. So we'll see together what we can do. But this video will not be only about CSS Grid and responsive design, because we will see together two additional things. The first one is that these testimonials, I didn't want to hard code these card contents. So these come from a custom post type with custom fields. And in this video, we will explore ways to create custom post types and custom fields without external plugins. We will not be using advanced custom fields. We will not be using Metabox. We will use a bit of PHP and native WordPress custom fields and custom post types features. And the last thing is that we will explore together ways to use CSS custom properties, CSS variables, to create modular components, because all of these testimonial cards are based on the same base component, which is a testimonial card. And then with a smart use of CSS custom properties, we can create all of these variations: the featured card, the base card, the inverted card, the gray one, and those column spans and row spans. And maybe one last thing before we dive into the build is that these variants using CSS custom properties used in custom classes are activated based on dynamic data pulled from a custom field from our custom post type. So for example, this featured card is designed from our testimonials custom post type, and we have a specific custom field defining card modifiers that apply the featured styles and the wildcard styles. If you are interested only by specific aspects of this build, as usual, you will find timestamps in the video. So if you don't care about custom post types, you can go directly to responsive CSS grids or to CSS custom variables. So if this sounds interesting, let's have a look at the details of our challenge. As usual with Frontend Mentor, we are given design assets, and we are given two versions: a desktop version, which is this one, and a mobile version. So if you don't have one yet, you can sign up for a free Frontend Mentor account. To follow along with me for this video, you don't need the Pro version. But if you want to, there's a Pro version that unlocks all challenges and gives you access to Sketch and Figma design file. But anyway, today we are building a free challenge, and it's completely okay to go with the free account. Once you are signed up, you can click the Visit Challenge Hub. You will have to subscribe to the challenge. I'm already subscribed, and then you can download the starter files. Let's have a look at what's in the file. So I did open the folder in VS Code. So we have a README describing the challenge. We have a style guide with dimensions, colors. We have the designs, desktop and mobile. And we have images, an SVG for the quotes, and our clients' avatars. And with this, let's open our WordPress dashboard. So here is our dashboard. It's a completely blank site I just created. I use WordPress version 6.1.1. Let's have a look at the plugins. I have the beta version of Oxygen 4.4, and I have the latest stable version of OxyProps, which is version 1.4.10. And I have no other plugins installed. And the first thing we will take care of is creating our custom post types. And to create our custom post types, we will need to write a bit of PHP. If I was using Bricks today, I could use Bricks child theme and write my code in the theme functions.php. But I'm using Oxygen, and in Oxygen, as you know, we don't have any functions.php file. And I don't want to use another third-party plugin to add code snippets. So what we will do is create our own plugin. And even better, we will create a must-use plugin. So if you are creating a site for your client, well, by creating a must-use plugin, you can make sure that the client will not mess with your code, will not deactivate your plugin, and will not modify anything. So what you need to do now is to locate the root folder of your website and open it in your text editor. If you don't have a text editor, I'm using VS Code. You don't have to use VS Code, but if you don't have a text editor, you can go and download VS Code. It's completely free and it's very convenient. So you will know that you are in the right folder if you see folders like WP admin, WP content, WP includes, and all these files, including wp-config.php. And when you are here, you can go to the WP content folder. If we wanted to create a plugin, you see that we have Oxygen and OxyProps here. We could create a new folder to create our plugin, but we will create a specific one. So in the WP-content folder, we will create a new subfolder. And the name of this folder is important. It's mu-plugins. And inside of this mu-plugin folder, we'll create a new file, and you can name this file whatever you want, but I will name it my-cpt for custom post type.php. In this file, let's open PHP. And first, let's write a comment. And this is important. You need to integrate this comment. So the first one is plugin name, colon, and let's give it a name of my-cpt. The next comment is the author. This will be me. Then the author URI. Let's enter the OxyProps URL. Then you can add a description. My awesome custom post type. And let's spell it correctly, description. And then you can add a version. This will be 1.0.0. Okay, we can add many information to this comment, but let's start with this. Let's save the file and go back to our WordPress dashboard. On the plugins page, I'll refresh the page and just appeared a new link here, must use. And if I click on it, I have my must use plugin that has been automatically activated because a must-use plugin are executed automatically. It doesn't need any activation. With the name we did define, the description, the version, and the author with the link to the URI. So for now, this plugin is empty. It doesn't do anything. So let's make something useful with it. Back to the editor. We will tell WordPress to create, to register our custom post type. And for this, we will add an action. So we use the function add action, parentheses. Don't forget the semicolon at the end. And this takes two arguments. The first one is the hook. When do we want to add this action? And the one we want is init. And the second argument is a reference to the function that we want to execute at this moment. And here we have to make up a name. So let's name it my custom post type. Okay, so we are telling WordPress to execute my custom post type function at the init hook, but for now it has no idea what to do, what this function is. So let's create this function. So we create a function, my custom post type, parentheses, curly brackets. And in the body of this function, we will call another WordPress function, which is register post type, parenthesis. And inside of this parenthesis, we will define our custom post type. So the first argument is the post type itself. So this will be testimonial. And the second argument is an array. And inside of this array, we will give several properties. The first one will be capability type. Don't forget to wrap this in quotes. And this will be equal. And as this is an associative array, we use this symbol, this double arrow, which is made of an equal sign and a greater than sign. So it looks like an arrow because my VS Code font uses font ligatures, but this is an equal and a greater than. And the capability type will be post, which means that any user with the capability to create post will be able to create a new testimonial post type. The next property we are interested in an important one, that's supports. And this one takes an array. And inside of this array, we will describe the features that we want to activate for our custom post types, the default title and editor, but let's state it anyway. And then I also want my post type to support the excerpt, the thumbnail, and of course, custom fields, comma. The next property is rewrite, and this one also receives an array. And inside of this array, we will define the slug, and this will be testimonials. And as you may imagine, this rewrite properties for the slug defines the way our custom post style will appear in the site URL. So this means that to access these custom post types, I want the URL to be the URL of my site /testimonials. The next one is as archive, and this will set to true. Obviously, if you don't want an archive for your custom post types, you will set it to false. The next one is public, and we want our testimonials to be public, so let's set it to true. The next one is labels. This takes an array. And you can set many labels, but let's use only a few of them. First will be the name, of course. And this one will be the human readable name, so I will use a capital letter, testimonials. Next one is add a new item. And this one will be add a new testimonial. The next one will be edit item, which will be edit testimonial. All items, all testimonials. And finally, singular name, testimonial. And finally, the last property we will give is the menu icon. And let's use the dash icon dash awards. Okay, so now our custom post type is defined with all of these properties. If you are curious and want to know everything that can be defined when registering a custom post type, you can go to the WordPress codex, but this will be more than enough for our use today. So make sure that the file is saved and go back to WordPress. And if we refresh, we should see our new post type. And here it is, but I have a problem with the icon. Certainly, I didn't spell it correctly. And of course, that's dash icons awards. So let's save again, refresh again. And we have our testimonials post type with our labels, all testimonials. And we can add a new testimonial with the various features we did activate. Of course, we have a title, we have the editor, we have the excerpt. The featured image is there, but I see that we are missing the custom field, so maybe I did misspell something. Let's have a look. And of course, custom fields with an L, it will be better. Certainly you were yelling at your screen, I didn't hear you. So let's save and back in the editor. Let's refresh. And now we have our custom fields. As I'm using Oxygen, I have the Oxygen meta box, but that's not interesting for this custom post type. So I want to deactivate Oxygen for this testimonial custom post types. This takes place in Oxygen settings. I go to client control and I will hide Oxygen meta box on the following post types. I don't want it on my testimonial. Save change. And then back to my custom post type. And Oxygen is gone. Certainly you notice that the way I did set up this custom post type, it uses the classic editor and not Gutenberg. And this is something you can modify if you want to. If you want the classic editor, which can be convenient sometimes if you only want raw text for your content, it can be a good way to go. But if you want to activate the block editor, Gutenberg editor, you can go back to your custom post type registration and you just need to add a property which is show _in_rest with a value of true. Let's save. And with this additional property, if I go back to my custom post type and I refresh, this time I should see the editor. I still have, of course, my title, my content, my featured image, my excerpt. We are not seeing custom fields when using the Gutenberg editor. This is because we need to go to the three dots here and go to Preferences. And then in Panels, we must activate the Custom Fields panel. Enable and reload. And now we have our custom fields. So it's up to you. Either you want the Gutenberg editor or the classic editor. And now we are ready to create our testimonials content. So let's just have a look at our reference design. So if we look at our desktop design, of course, I will use the featured image for the avatar. I will use the client name for the post title. I will use the excerpt for this heading. I will use the content for the content. And I will create a custom field for this status of verified graduate. On our design, they all are verified graduate, but maybe later we will want different status. So let's prepare for that with a custom field. Okay, so let's go and create the first one together. If you're looking for the content, we have this index.html file here, and inside this index.html, we have all of our text that you can copy and paste. Okay, so let's start with Patrick's, for example. Okay, so that's my title, my content. Let's define the excerpt using this text. Let's bring Patrick's picture for the featured image. Okay, now let's create our custom field. I want to name it client status, for example. And this will be verified graduate. and don't forget to click Add Custom Field. And that's it. We have a custom field of client status saved for this post with the value of verified graduate. So of course, I completely agree with you. Native WordPress custom fields are very basic, but depending on your use case, this can be more than enough rather than installing a third-party plugin. And for now, that's it. We will come back later and create an additional custom field for our styling. But for now, let's publish and add a new testimonial. This time, let's do Jeanette. This is our excerpt. This is our content. Let's set the featured image, bringing Janet image, and let's set our custom field. So you can notice now that we have created it once, and now I'm creating a second post of the same post type. I have a drop down suggesting me custom fields already associated with my post type. So I can call my client status and paste this value. Okay, so I won't bore you anymore with copy pasting. Let me create the other testimonials off camera and we meet again when I'm finished. Okay, I'm finished. We now have our 5 testimonials with all the necessary content. So let's create a new page and let's name it Testimonials, publish and edit with Oxygen. So first, let's create the structure. I'll add a header section. In this header section, I will add my OxyProps light dark toggle element. I want my element to be right aligned, so this will be horizontal right. And I want a small padding of 1. Perfect. That will be all for my header. I only want my dark light toggle. Then let's add another section. And inside my section, let's add a repeater. Okay, my repeater will query my testimonial post types. Let's apply query parameters and we are seeing 5 divs. Perfect. Let's open the structure so we can see. Let's grab the div and we will assign our div a custom class of c-testimonial-card. Of course, I don't want my divs to stack on top of each other. If we have a look at our desktop design, what I see here is a 4 columns grid. 1 column, 2, 3, and 4. So let's make our repeater a grid 4. Okay. And let's give it a gap of 2. We will see later if we need to increase it. That's to start with. And now let's take care of our card. And inside our card, we will need several things. We need an image and some text elements. And here we have this small block with the image and the 2 texts on top of each other. So let's take care of this. So inside my div, I want, and by the way, just before I do this, this is the default div created by Oxygen inside the repeater. I didn't create it directly, so I didn't assign the correct semantic tag. I will do that here with a tag of article. Okay, so let's add another div. It will be a div with a tag of div. This one has no meaning at all. And inside of this div, I'll add an image. And this image will be the post featured image. These are small images, so the only size we have is the full size, which is the small one. So that's perfect for us. And within the div, let's add again another div. And inside this div, we will have two texts. So two basic texts, 1 and 2. The first one will be my post title. The second one will be my custom field. So you will find the WordPress native custom fields under custom fields meta options. And our key is our client status, insert. And here we are. So let's continue by adding to the main card a heading and a text. This heading will pull information from the excerpt. And the text will pull information from the content. Okay, so we have everything we need. In order to style all of this, let's add custom classes. So this will be the c-testimonial-card __ avatar. And this uses the BEM naming convention. So what this means, I did name my card c-testimonial-card. In the BEM naming convention, my card is the B, that's the block level element. And then inside my card, I have elements, that's the E in BEM, B-E-M. The first one is my avatar. And in the BEM naming convention, you name elements after the block name, a double underscore, and the element name. So this is my testimonial card __ avatar. This one is my testimonial card __ client name. This one is my testimonial card __ client status. This one is my heading, and this one is my content. Let's create a last one by grabbing this div, and I just noticed that my heading and my text are not at the correct level. That will be better. Perfect. So let's grab this div, the one with the avatar, the name, and the status, and give it a class of client block. And this one will be an horizontal flex box with a vertical alignment of middle. It will be left aligned, and I want a gap of size 2. Perfect. Inside of it, let's deal with our avatar. And for now, let's just give it a border of radius round. Okay, so we have a round avatar. Our client name will be a font size of 0, a font weight of 600. The status will be a font size of 00, a font weight of 300. Let's take care of our heading with a font size of a size 1, a font weight of 600, and maybe, let's have a look. No, I will keep the line height, but I will give it a tag of h3. And then my content will be a size 00 and a font weight of 400. Let's grab our card and give it a flex direction of vertical. I want space between my items. I also want a gap of 2, and I want a padding of 3 applied on all sides. Okay, let's save and have a look at our front end. And here we are. Of course, it's not perfect yet, but we have our different elements in place. So let's continue styling our elements. And the first thing we would like to address is the span of the different elements. And for this, we can see that this one is spanning 2 columns, this one is spanning 2 columns, and this one is spanning 2 rows. So what we would like to achieve is giving this one, for example, a class of span 2. Okay, but if we do it this way, of course, that's not what we want because all of them will be spanning 2 columns. So we will remove this class. And what I would like to do in an ideal world is a way to assign a class based on dynamic data that I could pull from my custom post types, from a custom field. But unfortunately, this doesn't exist. It doesn't exist in Oxygen and it doesn't exist in Bricks. So we must find another way to assign styles to the various cards. So what we will do is use custom attributes. So with my div, my repeater div, selected, let's go to Advanced, Attributes, and let's add an attribute that we will call card-modifier. I hope I spelled this correctly. And what I want here is pull the value from a custom field. So this custom field is not existing yet. So for now, let's place an X as a placeholder, apply my attributes, save, and let's jump back to our dashboard. And let's go to my testimonials. And let's have a look. We want Daniel to span 2, and we want Patrick to span 2. And then we want Kira here to span 2 rows. So let's take care of Daniel first. And I will enter a new custom field, which will be my card modifier. And I will give it a value of wide. And that's not modifier, that's modifier with a D, update. Okay. Okay, so that's Daniel. The other one is Patrick. Let's edit Patrick. Add a card modifier of wide. And the last one is Kira. And she will have a card modifier of tall. Okay. Let's get back to our editor, refresh. And we need to refresh so that Oxygen Editor is aware of our changes. Grab my card, my attributes, and I will change this placeholder. And by the way, it's not a dash, that's an underscore that I did use. And my value will be my custom field, card modifier, insert, apply attributes, save, and let's have a look at our front end. And of course, this doesn't change anything for the styles for now, but if I inspect and look at my card, here I can see that I have this attribute of card modifier with a value of wide. Okay, as I told you, I would like a way to insert directly this value into my class list, but that's not possible in Oxygen. But this is not a real problem because we are developers, and as we are developers, we are full of resources. And then what I will do is add to my page a code block And let's bring this code block to the top. I will get rid of this hello world. And let's take care of our JavaScript. And we will write a little JavaScript. And our JavaScript will modify the class list of our card based on this attribute that we just created. So follow with me. You will see we will write a little code, a little JavaScript code, but it's quite easy and we will go step by step. I will explain everything that happens with this code. So first I declare a constant that I will call cards, and this will be a collection. I want to grab all cards on the page, and this will be equal to document, which is the reference to my page, dot. Document has access to a method that is query selector all, and the all is important. And we want to grab all elements that have an attribute of card underscore modifier. Okay, so that's the attribute we just created. So we are looking for every element in the document that has this attribute. And this function will return an array, a collection of all cards, so we can work with them. So now that we have our cards, we can say that our cards, and in JavaScript, cards will be an array, and every array has access to a method, which is for each. And for each will loop through all elements in the collection and perform an action for each one of them. And inside the parentheses, we will give it a function to execute for each of the elements. So we can use an ES6 arrow function. So we create another pair of parentheses. As an argument, we'll say that for each card, so that's for each card in our cards collection, an arrow symbol equal greater than, and a pair of curly brackets. Let's drop down to stay organized, and in the body of our function, we will define what we want to do for each of these cards. Let's create another constant, and my constant will be modifier, and this will be equal to my card dot to access a method named get attribute, and this method will return the value of my attribute, and the name of my attribute that I want to get the value for is my card underscore modifier. Okay, so for example, for Daniel's card, which has a modifier of wide, this will return the value wide. And now let's take care of the various cases. If, parentheses, curly brackets. As a condition, we will state that if my modifier includes, modifier will be a string of text. My string of text has access to this method includes that will check if a string of text includes another string of text. So I want to check if my modifier includes wide. And then, if my modifier includes wide, I will grab my card and I will look inside it for its class list, and I will call a method add. And what will I add to my class list? Well, this is the CSS class from the OxyProps framework, O-span2. So this code will look for all the cards in the document, check for our custom attributes, and if one of the custom attributes contains wide, it will add the class O-span2 to this element. And let's do something similar for the other value, which is tall. And this time, it's not a O-span2, but it's an O-rspan2. Okay? In the OxyProps framework, the O-span classes represent a span over a certain number of columns, and the rspan classes represent a span over a defined number of rows. So let's save. First, let's be sure to apply code, save, go back to our front end, and if everything works as expected, when I refresh the page, we would see a change in layout. And here we are. We can see that now this card is spanning 2 columns and this card is spanning 2 columns. If we want to be sure, we can inspect and simply activate the grid so we can see the columns, and obviously this card and this card span over 2 columns, and this one spans over 2 rows. And it's also visible here because if we look at this div, actually it's an article, because remember we did modify the semantic tag to article. We have our modifier of wide, and our JavaScript did add the class O-span2 to this article. Perfect, that's exactly what we wanted to achieve. So let's collapse the editor and continue with our styling. And we need to decide among all of these cards which one will be our base card. Well, in my opinion, the base card will be the white one. And to make things more visible and stick to our reference design, let's switch to light mode and we will start designing using our light mode. So we are back at our testimonial card class level. What we can notice on this design is that the background, the section background, is darker than the card background. So let's give our section a background color of surface 2. Okay, it will be darker. For consistency, let's do the same with this one. Okay, and now my card could receive a background color of surface 1. But that's not exactly what I want to do, because depending on my card, we will have different background colors. And that's where we will make a good use of CSS custom properties. So first, let's take care of what's common to all of these cards. We have rounded corners on all of them. We have a drop shadow on all of them. So first, let's define a radius of 2. Perfect. And let's add a shadow 4, for example. And now about our background color. So I will get rid of this one. And what I will do is that I will define custom properties. So let's go to custom CSS and I will create a property, a CSS custom property. Let's enlarge it. So I use a double dash. And when working at a component level like this, that's an internal CSS property, I use this naming convention, and that's a suggestion from Lia Veru. I will give you a link in the description. It may seem strange, but that's a way to recognize the local property. And let's name it card-bg. And this card-bg will be my var -o-surface1. I will also define a card heading color, and this one will be my var text1. And I will also define a card text color, and this one is the heading color but with 70% opacity. And for this, in OxyProps framework, we use the HSL function, and to this HSL function we pass the var -o-text-1-hsl property /70%. Okay, so here we have defined custom properties for our card, and we now will use those custom properties in the definition fields. Why are we doing this? because when we will want to change the background color or the text color, we simply have to change the custom property value, and this will impact all the appropriate elements. Okay, if it's not completely clear yet, that's okay. So let's go on and see what happens. So here, for my card in the background color field, I will say that I want a var of -- card -bg. And now my background is my surface one. And now we will take advantage of the CSS inheritance, and let's go to the elements and start with my client name. And for my typography, I want the color to be var -- card heading color. Perfect. Let's copy this value and do the same for my heading. And now my status will have a color of var -- card text color. And we have our 70% opacity. And the same for my content. Okay, let's save. And why is it interesting to do this rather than simply entering surface 1, text 1, surface 1, etc.? Well, now we have a centralized place, and I can simply, if I want, go to my main component element, my c-testimonial-card, to my custom CSS, and from here, if I want to change my text for all the elements inside the card, well, for my heading, for example, I can simply say that I want my heading color to be blue. And of course, it doesn't work because I misspelled it. So let's correct it. My card heading color, and if I want it blue, now it's blue everywhere. I want it red. Well, I simply have to change my custom property once, and thanks to CSS custom properties and CSS inheritance, it's applied everywhere it's needed. So that's already very nice, but it can be even better. So let's add another property that will be my avatar, -- avatar color. Because you noticed that if I go back here, my avatar has a border on certain cards, not all of them. The base card has no visible border, but on this one, what I call the featured one, and this one, the invert one, we have a border. So let's prepare for it and say that my base color for the avatar is transparent. Let's copy my property and go to my avatar. I'm at my avatar level, advanced, borders. We already did define the radius, but now I want to define the color that will be var, my avatar color. And I want it to be solid with a width of border 2. So this has no effect on this card, but later this will be useful. Okay, so now our base card is ready. If we have a look maybe at our front end and refresh and switch to the light version, well, our card is very similar to the target. I'll just make sure that my width is set correctly, and for this, go back to my dashboard. OxyProps will regenerate later, but go to my settings. I want to apply OxyProps global settings, save, and now my site width is as expected. So maybe the next one we will take care of is this one, the invert one. So let's go back to our dashboard, our testimonials, and this one is Patrick. And so let's go back to Patrick and give it another modifier, and I will use a space and invert. And let's update. So now our custom fields has two keywords, wide and invert. And back to our editor, let's go back to our code block. In our JavaScript, we simply want to add a new if statement, and this time we will check if our modifier includes invert, and if it does, we will add the class o-invert. That's also a class from the OxyProps framework, and the role of this class is to invert the color scheme. So when you are in light mode, an element with the class invert will use the dark mode color scheme, and when in dark mode, it will use the light mode color scheme. So with these simple modifications, let's check our front end and refresh. Okay, so now this card is inverted. And of course, as it is an inversion of the color scheme, well, when I switch to dark mode, it's also inverted. So next, maybe let's take care of this gray one. So back to my editor. Let's create a new class, and this will be c-testimonial-card. And this time we will create a modifier class in the BEM naming convention. That's the M for modifier. And as its name suggests, a modifier class modifies another class, so it cannot live by its own. It needs to be associated with another one. The other one is the base class, the c-testimonial-card. And this one will modify the c-testimonial-card. We use a double dash for the modifier. And let's say that this will be a modifier of gray. And to make things simple, let's first select this one, go to our custom CSS, grab all of our properties, and then go to our testimonial cards gray, paste it, and what we want here is our card background. So this time I will not use a logical color because I want a fixed gray. I want the same gray for the dark mode and the light mode, and it will be a O-canvas-400. My heading color will be a var O-white, and my text color will be also white, but the HSL version of it with the 70% opacity. Let's have a look. And of course, that's better with an E and not an S. And this is the gray version of our card. Let's apply code, collapse the editor. But of course, we don't want this class to be applied to the element. That was just for the class definition. So let's remove it. But before removing it, let's copy its name and then remove it. And now you imagine we go to our code block, our JavaScript. Let's paste my class name for the moment and let's copy the if statement. And this time, if modifier includes gray, well, I will add the class, my modifier class, c-testimonial-card _gray. Let's save. We want to add this class to the Jonathan testimonial. So you know what we have to do. Go to our testimonials, Jonathan, edit, and we want to add a card modifier with the value of gray. Update, and back to our front end. Let's refresh. And our card is now gray. Well, next, let's take care of Daniel. We want this card to be our brand color. So first, let's go to our testimonial, Daniel, and let's create a modifier of featured and update. And back in Oxygen, let's create a class of testimonial card _featured. Let's get properties from our custom CSS. Go to our featured class, let's get rid of the avatar. We'll take care of this later. We want the background to be our brand color, the heading color to be our surface one, and the text color to be our surface one with a 70% opacity. And that's our card. And once again, let's get rid of the class, collapse the editor, go to our code block, if the modifier includes featured, well, let's add this one. Apply code, save, and when we refresh, it's working as expected. So now let's add the border around the featured card and the inverted card. So let's create a new modifier class, and let's call it testimonial card -- colored avatar. And what do we want for this class? Well, we want a custom CSS of -- avatar -color of var -- o brand hover semicolon. Apply code. Okay, we can see it. So first, let's take care of our JavaScript. We don't need to create a new modifier because this is linked to the featured card. We already have this modifier, and to the inverted card, and we already have this one. So let's go to our JavaScript. And to save some typing, let's copy, for example, this one. And on our invert modifier, we want also to add to the class list a new class that will be c-testimonial-card -- colored-avatar. And we want to do the same on our featured card. Let's apply this code, collapse the editor, save. Let's make sure the class is not by default on our div. Save. Go to the front end, refresh, and we have our circle color, but it's not perfect. It should be lighter. So let's jump to our dashboard and go to OxyProps color settings. And we will go to the brand color, define the light mode, and by default, the hover color is darker than the base brand color. And here I want it lighter, so let's go for 200, for example. And let's also change the dark mode, and let's do it 85, for example. Back to the front end, let's refresh, and that's better. Let's check the dark version. That's perfect. So now the last thing, we want to add this quote. And for this, we have an SVG. So let's use this SVG. And SVGs, I like to use them as code blocks rather than image files because this gives us much more control over the SVG. So let's go back to our editor. And inside this card, let's add a code block. And let's paste our SVG. And if we don't change anything, we will see that. Let's apply code. Okay, here it is. If I want to have control over the size of my FVG, and for example, that I extend the size, you will notice that The code block extends, but the SVG itself doesn't. So let's adjust the code a little to fix this. And this is because of this. So let's get rid of this height. Remember that it's 102 and our width is 104. And now change it to 100%. And we will add a property of viewport with the values of 0, 0, 104, 102, which were our values for the width and the height. Let's apply this code, collapse the editor, and my bad, that's not viewport, of course, that's viewbox with an equal. Let's apply, okay, and you saw the change. Now, with this property, my SVG is managed by my element width. So if let's move my panel, but you can see that if I change the dimension, the SVG scales with it. Okay, so let's go to 12. And I want to position it absolutely. So let's go to the div, give my div a position of relative, give my code block a position of absolute, and I want it to be top 0, right 25%. I also want it to be behind my text, so with a negative Z index. You notice that it disappears, but as you use OxyProps, you know how to fix this. Let's go to our card element and give it a class of isolate. We are creating a new stacking content, and now our design element is visible and behind our text. But we are not finished, because if we save and check our front end, we have the element on all cards. That's not what we want. We want to display it only on the featured card. And this will be quite easy thanks to conditions. So let's add a condition to this element. I want to show hide based on conditions. And I will set my condition, and my condition will be based, once again, based on my custom field. So I want a dynamic data. I want my custom field, and I want my card modifier, insert. And if my card modifier contains the value featured, I want to display it. Let's save and check our front end. And that's perfect. Now the element is visible only if the card is a featured card. So let's compare to our target. That's the design. That's what we designed. And maybe the heading is a bit small. So let's try enlarging this text to a font size 2. That's a bit too big. So let's stick with 1, but with a 1.2 multiplier. And that's nice. But now what about screen size responsiveness? So let's have a look. And for now, we can see that our design is not responsive at all. Okay, so let's fix this. And first, let's go to our repeater. Our repeater has a grid 4. And let's say that on the large breakpoint, I want a grid 3. On the medium breakpoint, I want a grid 2. And on the small breakpoint, I want a grid 1. We can save, but this is not enough, because we need to take care of our modified cards and their respective spans. Because if we look at the front end like this, let's refresh. We see that the grid is changing. And that's not so bad. But okay, we still have troubles. we want to add additional classes to our cards. So let's go to our code block. And first, let's take care of our wide cards. Our wide cards span over 2 columns, but I want them when I'm on mobile. Of course, on mobile there's only 1 column. So I want to add the class O-small span 1. Simple. And now what about my tall card? Well, for this one, on the large breakpoint, I want it to stick to 1 row. So I want rspan 1 on the large breakpoint. But then if we look at our design guide, we see that this is the third card on the desktop. But if we look at mobile, on mobiles, it is the last one. So they switch order, so we don't have 2 wide cards side by side. So to achieve this, and we will switch order at our large breakpoint. So O-LG last. So this class means that at the large breakpoint, you go last of the child elements of your parent. At the large breakpoint, as it is a card with quite a lot of content, I also want it to span over 2 columns. So I want a O-large-span-2. But finally, at the small breakpoint, I want it to span 1. Okay, let's save, refresh, and give a last try. So that's the large breakpoint. We have now a 3 columns grid. Our card did jump to the last position and it's now spanning over 2 columns. Let's continue. We are at the medium breakpoint. We now have a 2 columns grid and we have cards spanning 2 columns and cards with less content spanning only 1 column. And finally, let's reduce to the small breakpoint. And now all cards stack on top of each other. And let's compare this with our reference design. And we are quite close. Screen size responsive and color responsive. And this is how you can create custom post types, custom fields with native WordPress features, how to create a responsive CSS grid with various column spans and row spans, how to use efficiently CSS custom properties or CSS variables to create as many variations as you want of your base element. And also, this is how, with a little JavaScript, we can assign dynamic classes to our element using a data attribute pulled from our custom field. As usual, if you liked the video, don't forget to press the like button. That's very helpful for the channel. If you haven't yet, consider subscribing to the channel for other videos like this one. I'm looking forward to seeing your awesome designs and I'll see you in the next video.